Hello folks, and I hope you're all still keeping well out there. Now this video is basically just random clips of foxes shot on different farms at different times of the year, all filmed through one of the little powered 007s. It's actually quite an old unit now, but it still seems to be doing the business okay. Although that one managed to run just out of sight, I found it lying dead a few yards into the field later. Now, I called this one in through a gateway at the bottom of the field, but it seemed to hang up on me and didn't want to come any further. It was a relatively long range shot for me at about 200 yards, and at the time I thought I'd totally missed it, as you'll see in the footage. But the farmer reassured me that I did get it, as he found the carcass sometime later. Going, gone. I spotted this fox coming down the field. It's into the same field as the last shot, as I've shot quite a few foxes on this particular property over the last few years. But this one pulled a fast one on me, as while I was wondering which side of the roller it was going to appear, it actually disappeared back up the field and out of sight again. I don't know whether it was the IR or what that spooked it, but it lived to see another night. Now this fox here had actually called in and spotted with the powered NV007 spotter. It was pretty close to me, but by the time I got onto the rifle on the sticks, it had spotted me and was now heading down the field at quite a rate of knots until I managed to stop it for the shot. When I walked down to pick this fox up, I turned round and spotted eye shine behind me in my head torch. It was the vixen that had followed me down the field. She was only about 25 to 30 yards away, but I did manage to get her before she disappeared through the hedge. Unfortunately, I didn't get any footage of it. I called these two foxes in one night, but they got hung up way out of range and wouldn't come any closer. I could have walked in on them, but there was a road directly behind them and it wouldn't have been a safe shot anyway. But I did manage to get the vixen later on that night when I came back and found her in a much safer shootable position. But unfortunately, I can't find the footage of it. Now, this one almost got away from me. I'd been watching this eye shine for quite a while but couldn't identify what it was, but realised it was working its way down the fence line, and sooner or later it'd have to cross in front of that gate where I'd be able to identify it, and if it was a fox, get a shot at it. But when it walked across and I gave it a squeak, it stopped straight in front of that big rock. So there was nothing else for it, but yep, the headshot. I'd have loved to seen what that shot looked like in thermal. Spotted this fox from the farmyard. I was standing between two sheds at the time, which really echoed that shot even with the suppressor on. I'd been trying to call this one in for quite a while, but it got hung up and decided after a while it had had enough and went to walk off. Managed to get it to stand one last time and took a shot at about 150 yards, only to totally miss it and watch it run off into the distance. Not really much to say about that one, but done and dusted, hey. This one on the other hand was another one I spotted from the farmyard. And again I'm shooting at the same spot between the two sheds. Man, that's loud. Now occasionally when you're out and about through the fields with the night vision, you do pick up other wildlife beside foxes, like this badger for instance. I don't see them too often in my area, but they're not well liked by the farmers with the whole TB thing. But they are still fully protected under UK law, so I leave them alone when I see them. I did however have one that waddled its way up the farm track one night to just a few feet outside the door of the Shogun, but I definitely didn't feel like stepping out and giving it a wee pat in the head because it was a big brute of a thing, a lot bigger than I thought they were. But it quickly shuffled its way back down the lane again the way it came from, once I shone a torch on it to get a better look at it. Now this one turned out to be a real surprise. I thought at first it was a young fox, but it turned out to be either a mink or an otter. The odd thing was there is no rivers near this point, though the field at that time was quite well flooded into a pond, and I did hear a few duck flush off it later on once I lost sight of the animal. This one now had a touch of mange in its hindquarters, but otherwise it seemed to be physically fine, until I shot it, that was. Initially I spotted two foxes coming down into this field, but only managed to get this one, as its mate quite wisely disappeared out in the road once it heard the shot. Now, this bit of hill ground here is quite heavily lamped by other shooters, so I took a different approach and hung a few rabbits up on a fence post. It took maybe a couple of weeks before I noticed anything had started to eat at them. So when I did, I set up under a tree one night with the rifle and the night vision to see what would come in. Unfortunately, once I did spot the fox, I realised that the reeds were so high it was very difficult to get a clean shot at it. But with a bit of patience, it finally stepped up on a wee bit of high ground, and I got the shot. Now, I'd been calling in this field for a wee while when I noticed something disappear in behind the hedgerow at the bottom of the hill. On the footage at the minute you can see it as a fox, but at the time I wasn't quite sure what it was, and since there was sheep in that field, I didn't want to shoot it just eye shine through the hedgerow. And when I did finally identify the fox as it walked in front of a wee clearing, I quickly lost sight of it again. But after a few minutes of frantically searching up and down the hedgerow, it finally reappeared about 80 yards away after it had walked through a muddy gateway. job done and another one in the bag. Now, with this fox, I honestly don't know what went wrong. I originally called it into the field, but it wasn't in a safe shootable position, so I walked into the field to see where it disappeared to, only to realise it was sitting watching me at the bottom of the field about 200 yards away. The shot looked good, felt good, even sounded good, but the fox took off across the field like a scalded cat. I followed it in the scope, expecting it to drop dead any second, but you can see from the footage it doesn't look like it's been hit at all. And even after a decent search with a head torch afterwards, I never seen any sign of Foxy or blood trail. This is another one from the farmyard. It's only about 50-60 yards away, and by the way it was reacting, I was pretty sure there was a second one nearby. Now this fox had more chances than enough, as firstly, I forgot to take the safety catch off. Then secondly, I got a dead man's click, as I forgot I hadn't chambered a round yet. But thankfully, we got there in the end. Oh man, that is loud between those sheds. But no sign of his foxy mate. Though, a few minutes later, I started hearing fox barks coming from further out into the field. A wee bit of a searching, and I finally found him. Got the tripod set up and the rifle on target. And just after it let out one last bark towards its mate, I added a second one to the bag. I honestly thought I'd got a mate at pair, but it turned out they were two dog foxes. Well folks, I hope you enjoyed that, and hopefully later on in the year I might have enough clips to do another video. And if you're wondering about the rifle I'm using, it's a CZ527 in treble 2 caliber, using a 40 grain Vmax hand load. The scope is a Bushnel Tactical Elite 6-24 by 50, and the suppressor is a Wildcat Predator 8, and of course the night vision unit is the powered NV007. Take care folks, and look after yourselves, hey.